It's live.
Assalamu alaikum, guys.
Assalamu alaikum. First
salam.
thing, and my green screen's gone, so I'll be on audio from
And there's us thinking you had your own library. Ruined my dreams. It's ruined my dreams.
Yes,
well, inshallah, one day.
Well, alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. MashaAllah, we've got another stream going now. Alhamdulillah. I think this one should be very interesting, I think. It's a one that I've been thinking about for a while, actually, to do. And I know that you guys are often quite sort of, not bored, but let's say the repetitive asking of, oh, tell us your conversion story. And it's like, oh, my God, not again, subhanallah. But from somebody born Muslim, I must say, I find those events that led somebody into Islam really, really inspirational and motivational. It's because, obviously, as a Muslim, I know that Allah selects people. Iman is a gift. And Allah chooses who Allah bestows guidance to. Of course, that person has to have a heart and a soul desiring and wanting and finding the answers and connecting to the Creator. So there has to be a desire for it. And also, of course, you mustn't be arrogant, because Allah says that Allah does not guide those who are arrogant, that have taqabbur in their hearts, that are haughty, that are arrogant. And in fact, surprisingly, this is what Satan had and lost his position with the closeness of Allah, was taqabbur, was arrogance, because he said, I'm better than Adam, than this creation, Adam. And so taqabbur and arrogance is from shaitan, actually. And Allah does not guide those who have this taqabbur, to have this arrogance inside them. So when I hear a story of or when I have the events given to me in relation to how somebody came into Islam, the reason why I find those very, very motivational is that I can see, subhanallah, Allah's guidance, how it unfolded in that person's life, in that person's heart, and mashallah, how they actually then entered Islam. So it's not just that individual story, but it's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intervened in that person's life and then guided them. So that, for that reason, we do find them, we find the sort of the conversion stories very, very inspirational, mashallah, and really, really interesting. And surprisingly, the other thing is, Jordan and Martin and Ben, is that the stories can vary quite a lot, People have different journeys. They have different routes to the truth. And for that reason, I would say that, we do find them interesting. So, but what I would say to new Muslims is that I know it probably is a little bit tiring going through the same thing over and over again, but don't underestimate how much, mashallah, joy, happiness, inspiration, and the strengthening even of our own iman, mashallah, from hearing these things, alhamdulillah. So don't underestimate it, really. So I think we've got Sister Adel, inshallah, joining us soon. And I think we've got Brother Matt joining us possibly in about half an hour, because he's working. Sure. So today's topic, inshallah, finding Islam, a revert's perspective. I didn't want it to be just another conversion story, even though those are very inspirational and they are very interesting. But I wanted it to be a lot more than that. I wanted to really sort of dig deep into some of the aspects leading into and then even post accepting Islam, and how they unfolded in your lives. So I suppose I'll start with Martin, inshallah. And so my first question, Martin, would be that, what led you to Islam? What was it? What was going on in your life, or what were you doing? What were you thinking?
My reason for looking into Islam to start with, I guess, was working with Muslims, because where I live, I look back now and realize I did have interaction with Muslims, but I didn't realize they were Muslim. But when I got to working age and started working in Cardiff, I was interacting with a lot more Muslims, and just seeing they were different to what I was used to. Like, I'm used to the valleys with everyone's white, everybody goes to the pub. There's the typical British mentality. And then I started working with these Muslims who wouldn't come out in the evenings with us, and so that was my initial my initial interaction and thinking, why don't they come out? What is it? So that was my spark, I guess, was working with Muslims and seeing their personalities and their beliefs, and then I started asking questions.
Yeah.
So I wasn't actually. Assalamu alaikum, Matt.
Assalamu alaikum, Matt.
Assalamu alaikum, Matt.
Walaikum salam.
MashaAllah, nice to see you, brother. We don't see you very often now. You're a very busy man.
I'm a shy man, but I'm here.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Martin. So Matt, basically, we've just literally just started, really, and I just sort of made a very quick intro that we'd like to hear more than just the conversion story. We'd like to hear perhaps more of the the nuts and bolts of how things happen, how you moved into wanting to learn about Islam and what have you. So Martin, mashallah, is just in flow. So just to sort of let you know where we are roughly, but we've literally just started. So welcome to the stream, inshallah.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Okay. So Martin, sorry, you were saying that you were working with Muslims, and
so it was just the way they were as people. So that I started asking questions. There was never a desire to become a Muslim or anything. It was just, and to read about it. It was just trying to understand what these strange people were and why they weren't like me.
Can I ask you, Matt, were you like, because obviously I've experienced this as well, and Muslims won't, obviously generally they won't go out drinking or anything else with the non-Muslim work colleagues. Like, some people find that quite offensive. They say, oh, they're offended that they won't come out with us to drink. Were you sort of along those lines, or were you just sort of thinking, well, what is it? Why are they not coming out? What was this?
Was that me? Sorry, because you said Matt, but
sorry, I beg you said. Sorry, Martin. Sorry, Martin. Sorry.
It was like, what's wrong with us? Why don't you want to be like with us? And then they explained why.
Okay.
And I still didn't understand it, if I'm honest. But respected their beliefs. And then I'd still be asking them to come, because I think maybe they'd change their mind. But it was like, say, from where I am, it was a very strange concept to not be in that social gathering.
Yeah. Okay, so Matt, same question to you, really. So what sort of sparked your interest? What led you to even want to find out about Islam?
To be honest, I never really had an interest to learn about Islam. It was not something I set out to do. It sort of just happened, which is, mashallah, I'm really pleased it has, but it's not something I ever set out. Mine was a more fundamental, when you sort of think about why am I here? And if you really think about it, when you think about like what's life all about, it's just a real head scratcher. It hurts to even think about it. And that's what got me to think about religion. And I was in Japan. I spent a year in Japan living there, and whilst I had a lot of time socializing, there was a lot of time on my own, because you can't always be with your friends. And sometimes you'd be sat there at 1 o'clock in the morning just thinking, and that's what got me into religion. Started thinking about religion. I've always never had a problem believing in God, or the idea, concept of God. I've never had that issue. It's strange to me that someone would think the opposite. That there isn't a God.
What led you to that realization that there must be a God, though? Was it more
the idea is it's all by chance, or some sort of weird experiment, or there's no meaning to why we're here. It just doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't fundamentally doesn't sit with me. And every time something goes wrong or something bad happens, you look to the skies and you sort of call out to some sort of deity. You don't even know who it is. Or some external party for help. And that's innate across all human beings. And I think it's a a position you learn to become an atheist. I think I think that's what you learn. I think you're born a theist. Maybe not a Muslim. You know what I mean? Well, obviously we are born a Muslim, but you know, according to Hamza, and I agree with that point. But
and in fact, I think the study in I think was it Oxford or Cambridge, where they did quite an extensive study on children all around the world, and they found out actually that they had some intrinsic belief of a higher power, and this was somehow weaned out, and that the atheist point of view actually was, like you said, an acquired position, not the default position. So that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, there's if you put a baby in a room with a glass wall behind a tiger, it won't be scared. Put a snake there, it's scared because it's born with that instinct to be scared of a snake. We're born with the instinct to believe in God, and it's built with us. And I think to move away from that is, as you say, as I mentioned before, an acquired position. So I never had the issue with God. I had the issue with religion more than God. And I went to Sunday school. It just didn't sit with me. The whole Jesus being God type of thing, it just didn't sit with me.
So same question for you, Ben, really. What were the sort of steps, what sort of led you to or sparked an interest really to learn more about Islam?
So before I even thought about religion or if because I was an atheist before, it was my interactions with Muslims. So one of my first jobs had a couple of Muslim friends there, and I would ask them questions. And that was my first proper interaction with Muslims. And moving, because I come from a small market town, so when I moved into a bigger place, it was the first time seeing Muslims around me as well, and there being a masjid and stuff like that. That was my first interaction, but still an atheist then. I think the biggest thing that made me, the biggest catalyst was that maybe I'm wrong about that, and maybe there is something that started the universe, and that journey on finding that there is a God. And that happened because of a Muslim, and it was a debate. Hamza sources. I can't remember which debate it was, to be honest, but he debated with an atheist and won, in my opinion. And I was like, "What? Wait a minute, we're the ones that know it all." Because you're used to watching debates with atheists and religious people, and the atheists just wiping the floor with them because they believe because they want to believe, rather than they believe because of good reason. And that started off of a couple of years of, or maybe a year or so, of just looking into different philosophies of what the creator is and so on like that. And then I went to Islam, because even as an atheist, I said, if there was a God, out of all of the religions, Islam would make the most sense. And the reason being was because I even then knew about the preservation of the Quran. Sure. But yeah, I looked into it. I spent under a year looking into the philosophy of there being a God and stuff, and then about a year looking into Islam, watching Dawah videos, watching anti-Islamic videos, and weighing it up, and eventually I didn't want to become a Muslim, but I had to, because I was convinced. And if I didn't, I could bury my head in the sand and carry on. I'd be a hypocrite, and I'll know what would happen in the end. So I had to take it. So that's the beginning of the journey.
Alhamdulillah. Jordan, I've heard your story, mashallah, but I still want to hear it again, inshallah, because it is a wonderful story.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing the other brothers actually reminding how different all our stories were. I think I didn't really particularly care too much about interaction I'd had with Muslims before. I was pretty much anti-Islam, even though my sister had converted years ago, and I'd actually witnessed how Islam had changed my sister's life around. But it's still, I think what I'd describe it as, and I don't know if you guys were similar. I think I just thought, I'm a nice guy. I'm smart enough to know what I'm doing. Religion's a bit dated. I never really felt, even though I believed in a God, so what if there's a God? If at the end of the day, if there is anything, I'm a nice guy. And I don't know what I was judging that on at the time. Obviously, this is all taught from society around us. Sorry, got that there. But yeah, I think my spark was my niece being born, and therefore all of a sudden Islam was having an impact on my little niece, who I was worried for. So that really sparked me into looking into Islam. Without that, I'm not sure I ever would. So we hear about Allah putting it in our hearts, and when I look back over my life, I find it, at which point did that happen with me? And I find it interesting myself. I'm not sure to what point that happened. But certainly, my stories. Once I saw Islam was a protection for my niece rather than an oppressive thing, it led me on this journey to one day look in the mirror and go, well, actually, what about you, Jordan? Could Islam be something for you? I think for me, I always say as well, seeing Hamza at the park, seeing a white Muslim, did make a difference to me, because I thought this is a beautiful religion. It all seems pretty true, to be honest, from all the arguments. However, it's lovely for the people in the Middle East. Seeing a geezer in Fred Perry top and a Lacoste hat and a ginger beard arguing for Islam, I was like, wow. So this is really something for everybody. And I like Ben, I resisted against it. I didn't want to be a Muslim. But at the end of the day, when it's the truth, that's it. You're in.
So really, with Jordan, Ben, and Martin, you had some contact with Muslims, whereas I think with Matt, it was more of a just being introspective and reflective, and it wasn't necessarily to do with interaction with the Muslims. Is that right, Matt? Am I right by saying that?
Yeah, I mean, because my interaction with religious people, there's good religious people from all religions. You know what I mean? I never looked at a Muslim and thought, I want to be a Muslim. I never looked at a Christian and thought, I want to be a Christian. It was just a case of, it wasn't, I kind of knew what Islam was, a basic framework. I knew you didn't go out drinking. I know you didn't eat pork and all that kind of stuff, but it wasn't that kind of, it was more, as you say, introspective.
Sure. So I think Martin and Ben and Jordan, I think the interesting thing here is that an interaction with fellow Muslims actually can make quite a lot of difference in terms of getting you to think about things, right?
Yeah.
And so I think from a born Muslim perspective, it shows that, unless we are a good ambassadors for this religion, we could actually potentially turn a lot of people away from Islam.
Yeah, one thing I remember the most is, the job was a Burger King, right? And I was a little teenager, and there was two Muslims there, one practicing Muslim and one not so practicing. And I remember, as an atheist, I was a punk as well, a mohawk and everything. I had really big respect for the guy that practiced, and I wanted the guy. It was weird. I wanted the guy that didn't practice to practice. Like, in my heart, it was a really weird situation, because I'm not a Muslim, don't believe in it all. But it was that principle of, this is what I believe. Even though I thought it was silly what they believed. I still had that respect for this guy. And mashallah, if it wasn't for that reaction, I don't know. Allah puts things in your life. Little breadcrumbs that you pick up. And I think that was one of them. And there's lots of them. Even going back earlier than that, my first real interaction with Islam, not Muslims, but Islam, was computer games, playing Stronghold Crusader. So it was like Crusaders against the Arabs and stuff. And that was my first interaction. What is this Islam thing? And then I remember being really interested in it. And my mum used to be a cleaner in a boarding school, and I used to go in as well and to help. And I saw the history history class, and there was a Crusader VHS, and it was about the Crusades, and it talked about Islam on there. And I borrowed it. I brought it back the next day, but astaghfirullah. But I watched it. I was only a kid, and that was my first interaction of what Muslims were.
So this notion, this is for all of you again. We'll start with Jordan first. And often people have this. People who are not Muslim, they have this perception that, you must have been uneducated or unsophisticated or perhaps mentally unstable, or you had this need to belong, or you had some really bad experiences when you were young, and that's what drove you to Islam. And that's often a notion that's put out there to somehow nullify somebody's intelligence, somebody's ability to investigate, decipher information. So would you say that's a fair assumption that they're making, Jordan, or do you think they've got the complete end of the stick there?
It's a great question, and if I can, just because the point you made before about people in our journeys being pivotal, I don't think I've ever seen a Shahada story where they've met an example of a good Muslim. And to be honest, in mine was, do you remember that time after Speaker's Corner when I came, we all went out for dinner? You and Hamza. that was something for me very pivotal. And when I came, and the feeling I had with you guys, and I do often wonder, did Allah plan that? Because if I came to Speaker's Corner and I met the wrong Muslims, it may well have, even though it's an intellectual decision, that experience, it can turn people away. So I do.
Because we're still emotional, aren't we?
Yeah. But in regards to your question, go on.
And I remember that you actually did say that, funny enough, that all the questions that you'd asked at Speaker's Corner and all the dawah that you'd received, actually, when we went out for the meal in the evening, and just the hospitality, the love that brothers showed you and showed each other, the sharing of the food and everything else, that had a bigger impact, perhaps, that you went and thought about afterwards.
It was something I'd never experienced before, in terms of no one was judging each other. It was just a laugh, brothers sharing food. It wasn't something I was used to ever in my life. So that had a lot more impact than anything else that day.
So the question, Jordan, was that the being uneducated to being unsophisticated and being having experiences in your life where you've got either you're bordering on mental illness or whatever, and that's what made you turn to Islam. I'd like you to address those sort of notions.
I definitely feel that this has been mudslung at theists, and particularly Muslim reverts, that and many people, when I meet them, they go, and they're trying to find something. They're saying, you haven't been to prison, you're not ginger, you haven't had depression.
Didn't take long.
We'll get Matt's list in a second.
Matt's ticking all these boxes.
You're not wearing a dress. You're not, and all these things that they try and poke something at you.
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Adel. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Adel.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
It's okay.
I have a problem with my contact lenses.
Oh, subhanallah. We just started, so it's not a problem, inshallah.
MashaAllah. But yeah, you're right, and this is something.
Okay, so continue.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
I think what you see on the media, you'll often see a radical Muslim, and this is people's perception of Islam. And for me, even me taking my Shahada, people close to you think, "What's he doing? Is he off to Syria? Is he getting a ticket to Syria?" And like you say, there's this real ethos that people that take religion need it because their life was struggling. They need to grab onto something. And for me, that wasn't the case. I was really happy before. When I say happy, I was happy in a sense. I was happy in my friendship groups. I was happy in my life. I hadn't had any issues. It was purely something I looked into, and something awoke inside me. And look, from the people that I've met within my social groups and stuff, the majority of reverts I meet are all educated, well-spoken, nice people. But like I say, there is this real media sort of thing thrown at a revert, this archetypal revert being this extremist person who's been somewhere. And to be honest, I've done a bit of research since to show that actually atheism, there are factors in people's lives that lead them away from God as opposed to God, which I do believe in.
Yeah. So Ben, same to you. I mean, are you really unsophisticated, Ben? Completely uneducated? Have you had a really hard, tough life to sort of throw you into the clutches of Islam, or?
Yeah, I was the loser. No, I'm
couldn't get a girlfriend.
I had a girlfriend at the time. I managed like an alternative shop that does tattoos and like heavy metal stuff, and I used to go to, I had good friends and I wasn't unpopular, alhamdulillah. But so no, it actually, becoming a Muslim just rated everything like that away. It took all that away from me, really. So it's the complete opposite, really, I would say.
Matt, same question for you, Matt.
I became a Muslim because I'm ginger. Just thought I'd get it out there. No, I mean, I think it's not. I mean, the people who know me just accepted it. The people who knew me accepted me, and it's not as if you walk around the street saying hello to everyone, I'm a Muslim. So most of the people who know me accepted it because they knew me before, and they knew I had the capability of making my own mind up. I haven't been led. I haven't been, talked into this, tricked into it. It wasn't anything missing in my life, despite what Jordan may tell you. I find that it's more Muslims who find it incredulous.
Yeah.
It's more Muslim, the Muslims, especially for Muslims from another country, if they come and they find out you're a Muslim, for some reason it's like you said you're from Mars. You know, why have you done this? Why have you accepted Islam? And all that kind of thing. So, apart from the ginger thing, which apparently is a high stat, I wasn't missing anything in my life at all. But yeah.
So, Martin, I suppose the same question for you, really. Were you completely down in the dumps before you had to forcibly accept Islam? Or
when I was properly looking into Islam, I was actually married with 2 kids. I was in a happy-ish marriage, as happy as any marriage can be. No, I was researching for quite a few years, and I was married. Like I say, married with kids. I had a good job. I come from a good household. My parents never had to hit us or anything. Brothers and sisters. So, I came from your typical household with no problems. I wasn't the most popular guy in school, as in I wasn't what they call them, the jock in American. But I had my football friends. I had other friends. I had the boys I used to play poker with. I had everything. Yeah. So definitely not a prisoner who got radicalized and and despite the haircut, it's not ginger. I used to be brown.
So, Sister Adel, mashallah, Jazakallah, thanks for coming all the way from.
I'm here. My connection is horrible.
It's okay, inshallah. We can hear you. We can hear you. So we've asked a couple of questions. So you're mashallah very early into the stream, and the first thing we asked the brothers was that, what was it that sparked your interest initially to want to learn about religion or learn about Islam?
In religion in general, it's always been something that I felt. I think we all have that need on the inside, but maybe we don't. Maybe not everybody can recognize that it's a desire to learn about religion or to be in touch with our Creator. So you go through life trying to fill that space with different things, but you can go 100 years and you can try anything in the world, but nothing's going to fill that void, because it's only being back in touch with who gave you life that you can really feel fulfilled and grow. There's no other way to do it. So that's the first step, I think, is identifying that the search has to go down that road. You can look into, there's so many ways to pass the time in this life, but they're not going to nurture you or help you grow. They might be a good distraction. So I'm very thankful that I've always had that that tendency to explore all different kinds of religions. And but Islam, I don't know how it happened, but it was like a step-by-step thing. But once I started really I didn't decide to investigate, but once I did, I just said, oh, okay, this was it. It was this all along. I slowly stopped listening to music and stopped, things that were a distraction, and just tried to focus on being in touch with the essence.
And so
once you read more.
Sorry. Yeah. So Sister Adel, I mean, a lot of people, they make this claim that, you have to be uneducated, unsophisticated, you have to have maybe a very horrible life, and that's why people turn to Islam. They sort of present people almost gullible or stupid. What would you say to those people?
No, if only. I think so many people have hardships. We have to have a whole other stream to say all the things that I've had my hardships too, and I'm very grateful for them, because that's how I learned, and I knew every step of the way that Allah was with me and protecting me. But so many people go through hardships, and that's their way to say, no, He doesn't exist, because if He existed, why would this be happening to me?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that coincides. If that's a stereotype that the uneducated turn to it, I don't think so. or that people, I think the uneducated, if anything, follow what is more of a normal, like the default Christianity that's more accepted in the world, and not Islam, which is, so scandalous to the uneducated.
So, sister, were you in Buenos Aires in Argentina when this journey started, or I believe you spent some time in America as well, or?
I was born and raised in the United States, and I came here in 2007. So I've been here for 13 years. It's going to be in December. Okay. So my whole coming of age happened here. It was, and people to this day, and I just came here to explore. I was 19 and I said, okay, I'm going to go see what the world has in store for me. And, everything that's happened along the way, being alone here, and the one constant in my life was the guidance and the protection that Allah has given me, and teaching me through hardships, but always keeping me afloat.
And did you have any? Sorry, did you have any contact with Muslims at all in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, or is it?
No. Here, no. And I hope in the States, yes. Where I lived in New York. I lived in Queens, and I lived near Washington D.C. And there's a very big Muslim community there. I had many Muslim friends. I still do to this day. I have a few that I keep in touch with.
And my question really to all of you, and I'll start with Martin. Your opinion about Muslims, sort of before accepting Islam and then being in Islam for a while, did that change at all?
I suppose there's the different types of Muslims. I guess you've got the practicing and the non-practicing and the in-betweens. So I've learned to see the beauty and the difference of all the Muslims out there. But like I said, I didn't really have any interaction because I live in the valleys in Wales. I didn't really have any interaction with Muslims prior to working in Cardiff. So I didn't actually have a view on Muslims prior to meeting one, because back then there wasn't 9/11, there wasn't all the rest of the stuff that's happened since. So it wasn't sort of forced into forced into my life. But upon meeting those first Muslims in Cardiff, I suppose I thought they were a bit backwards, a bit like antisocial and stuff. But then obviously learning the religion and then becoming a Muslim and seeing that it's far from backwards. It's probably the most social I've ever been in my life. But social as in with people who care about me, who have a vested interest in my well-being, not just people who are there. Like, I think I was watching Jordan earlier, and you have that group of friends who were there, but then as soon as I turned around and said I'm Muslim, they weren't friends anymore. Whereas I know that sort of circle that I've got now, that nucleus, is a lot stronger. And I genuinely believe, like, if I turned around to you guys and said, look, I'm struggling, I don't know if I'm a Muslim anymore, you guys would rally around and help me, even though I was going through those struggles. Whereas the other group of friends just dispersed. Like, it was like, oh, this doesn't fit with our norm, bye. So it's like I say, I looked on Muslims as being backwards and weird and strange, but then when I got to know them, alhamdulillah, they shocked me. They blew me out of the water.
And in fact, subhanAllah, the thing here, Martin, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even touches on this, that you were enemies to one another, talking about the non-believers and the Muslims, and that when the non-believers accept Islam, Allah instilled in your hearts a love for one another, like family almost, or like family, in fact. And this is amazing, actually, that when brothers and sisters come into Islam, inshallah ta'ala, if you yourself are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's this immediate rush of love, affection, brotherly, sisterly concern. And I think, inshallah ta'ala, if we, as born Muslims and as new Muslims, we can hopefully practice those traits that we should have. It clearly has a huge effect, I think, on people's hearts. So same question to you, Ben, your perception of Muslims before and after accepting Islam. Because a lot of people sometimes, before they come into Islam, they sort of romanticize that because they've investigated Islam and they find it to be the truth, that they somehow feel perhaps that all Muslims out there are going to be complete, perfect examples of this lovely faith, And sometimes it can be a bit of an eye-opener to realize that it doesn't quite work out like that, Ben. So was that sort of your experience as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, before I was Muslim, I had always had a massive respect for Muslims for actually following their religion. So if you look at Christians, they don't really follow the laws in their book or anything, and it was all the Christianity that I was exposed to anyway was very wishy-washy liberalism with a Christianity decoration on top of it, and I disrespected that. But I really respected Muslims for actually doing what they believe. But at the same time, if I was an atheist, so I still thought they believed in a sky daddy, fairy god, sort of thing. So I didn't. So there was that separation. When I became a Muslim, I wasn't zealous, but I was very judgmental, and that's exactly it. I would go to the corner shop and find out they're Muslim. Oh, assalamu alaikum, and then they go, oh, "What you got bacon for?" Things like selling bacon and alcohol and things like that, little things like that. And I started to get really. I didn't really have a support network really much. I had a few people, that's it. So I was on my own and I was judging everyone else, going, "Oh, look, you're not doing this." But I didn't even know how to pray properly yet. So I had that weird zealousness, but I wasn't, telling people. I just had it internally. So I was let down a bit. In fact, it was quite hard socially for me to switch from my previous social norms and customs and culture to Muslims. The jokes weren't getting my jokes. The food was too spicy. We had to sit on the floor and use our hands. It was weird. So actually, I'd say because again, I need to post up my story on my channel. But my story is that I accepted Islam and practiced for about 2 years, dwindled away and stopped practicing, and then alhamdulillah come back to the deen. So when I wasn't practicing, and I explained to some of my non-Muslim friends that I converted to Islam, I'm not really doing it as much anymore. One thing I did say is the hardest bit about Islam was the Muslims. I found it really hard to interact with Muslims. I felt awkward around them. I didn't know what to do, and a lot of people were telling me stuff that wasn't Islamic as well. That was their culture. A lot of people showed signs of blind belief almost, because they were born into it. That's what they believe. And I remember one brother said, and he was in his 40s, he was like, I'm reading the Quran at the moment. I was like, yeah, cool. And he was like, yeah, but the first time in my own language. I was like, you're 40, you've never read the Quran. Yeah. Subhanallah. So these things were really putting me off, like the religion a bit. Yeah. But that, I think, what Islam teaches you is making excuses for your brother. What Islam teaches you is empathy, and I hadn't learned that yet. I've learned that now. Alhamdulillah. I'm not the same old. What are you doing? Alhamdulillah. And I have a completely different view, outlook. Really. Outlook, because everyone's on their own journey, and everyone's not gone through what my thought process or what I've done. Yeah. And I can't implement that onto other people. Everyone's got their own journey. Alhamdulillah. Thanks, Ben. So, Jordan, right.
Did we really let you down, Jordan, after you accepted Islam? All the EFDawah boys, did we sort of...
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Subhanallah. I often make dua that other reverts get the same sort of support that I had. I think it was a question about my perception of Muslims before Shahada as well.
Yeah, before and after,
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, and hopefully I don't offend people, because I think in my sort of ignorant mindset, the way I was before, and I think a lot of British people may share this sentiment that even that you would say were racist people, But I think, look, the media is. I remember growing up, the media fed a lot of. Obviously, I remember 9/11. I remember at 9/11 not really thinking much about Muslims at the time, and I think most of us understood that it was foreign policy that was the cause of it. But you started to see more and more terrorist attacks. Then you start to hear about grooming gangs, and so I think the word Muslim to me, even though I didn't really have any Muslim friends, any practicing friends, the word Muslim almost came synonymous with those kind of things in the back of my mind, and the hijab became almost a symbol of oppression, and even perhaps when I saw a hijab, and then you, especially fresh after a terrorist attack, in your mind you're kind of linking all of it together, and a lot of this is obviously just fed to us in the media. And obviously now it couldn't be far further from the truth. I mean, seeing Adel with her hijab now, mashallah, it looks one of those beautiful things I've ever seen. But obviously at the time before that was the way I thought. But yeah, now my perception of Muslims, I mean, what I've got to say is obviously I think I'm very blessed to meet you brothers, but I think what's quite confusing is you take your Shahada and you think, wow, I've got this beautiful religion, and then you continually meet Muslims that aren't praying, aren't practicing, and it's quite confusing. And obviously it's not in our position to judge. No. And I'll kind of tone that down. I know Hamza, for example, used to turn up to kebab shops and ask them why they're not closed for Jummah. I think in your mind you're quite confused about how you've taken this beautiful religion. They've got it on their doorsteps and they're not making the most of it, and it's quite confusing. It's quite confusing. I remember that being quite a surprising thing for me to take. But do you know what? I think we criticize often sometimes about born Muslims not being sensitive enough and stuff, but there's nothing more beautiful than the brotherhood in Islam. The support that we all receive, and even in the comments and things like that, there's nothing like the Ummah. There's nothing like it, the support you receive in it. They're obviously, like everything that has its sides that needs improvements, but the strength and the support of Muslims post Shahada has been very good.
Alhamdulillah. So Matt, I suppose same question to you really. I mean, you said you had some experience with Muslims at work. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so how did your perception sort of evolve over time once you became Muslim?
I mean, thankfully, and thanks to God for this, I got good parents. I was brought up well in the sense that they never taught me to judge anyone. So I never really had any negative perception for Muslims before I took my Shahada or before I even learned about Islam. And I was of my own mind enough to see through, blaming all Muslims for all terror attacks, and all Irish people for the IRA, anything like that. I was able to see, to separate the terrorism from the people, and that kind of stuff. So I've never really had any negative stereotypes. I think a lot of my post-Shahada experience of Muslims mirrors a lot of what Ben and Jordan said to different extremes. I think you need to realise, and it dawned on me, not everyone is knowledgeable and well versed in the deen, for starters. And just because someone's been a Muslim for 20 years doesn't mean they know particularly a lot about the religion. They could just be doing what they do day in, day out, and not really question it. And so sometimes when you ask a Muslim a question, they seem they don't know the answer, or you sometimes you may even find that you may even know a teeny bit more than they do because you've taken the time to do the research. And so, I mean, it's just realizing that Muslim people are just people. There's a spectrum from good to bad to lovely to horrible, but I love them all, obviously, but there's just people. And I think, like Jordan said, one of the most standout things that struck me after the Shahada was a generosity of spirit. The fact that someone will go the extra mile, they find out you're a Muslim, they'll go the extra mile for you, and you do the same for them, and it's just that you do have that a sense of brotherhood, which it wasn't something I was expecting, but it's a beautiful thing.
Alhamdulillah. Very nice answer. And so, Sister Adel, I think you can still hear us. Sorry, I think you've got some work going on in the back there, so it's a bit awkward for you. So how long have you been Muslim now, Sister Adel? It's about 6-7 weeks, is that right?
I'm here. See, they left. They were doing some work. The 28th of March, I said the Shahada. So yeah, a bit over a month. But it feels like a lifetime. It's crazy.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
It feels like it's totally different.
Alhamdulillah. And do you have any contact with other Muslims there in Buenos Aires now? Have you managed to make any links with people there, or is that something that you're still looking into? Or I think Sister Adel's probably frozen connection there. Okay, inshallah. Well, we'll come back to Sister Adel if she gets back to a better connection. So I think one of the things that I've learned from that, Jordan and Ben, and from all of you, is that really, Muslims and how we behave and how we act and our knowledge of Islam, can be sometimes a little bit like, you can take it back a bit. You think, well, I found this wonderful, beautiful thing. And then you sort of somewhat confused as to why are you not following it, because you've already born a Muslim and you already had this. So I feel that there is this sort of surprise and astonishment, even if, of course, as Matt said, we don't judge people. But I can imagine that when you have something so beautiful and you choose not to follow it, that can be a bit confusing, I suppose. So what I would ask is that what organizations or Sister Adel, we've got you back, is that right?
For the moment, let's see how long the internet connection lasts.
Let me ask you the question quickly then, just in case we lose you again. Have you managed to get more contact with Muslims now, but maybe in Buenos Aires or in Argentina, or is that something you're still looking into?
I'm trying to on Facebook what I can find, but I've located maybe 2 or 3 mosques that are within maybe 2 hours distance, and that's about it. There's really not much of a Muslim community here where I live. Not at all. In the city there's some, but since the lockdown they're not really, I guess, I don't know if they're not keeping in contact. For the moment it looks pretty bleak, sadly. So just online, but I'm thankful for that.
And are you finding your connection with the EFDawah and mashallah being on the group, are you finding that to be quite supportive, helpful?
Yeah, it's a huge help. It's something I look forward to every day, to see what the brothers and sisters are talking about, because it's actually meaningful conversation, not just you go on the internet and there's so much garbage. But having this group of people that you can talk and you're actually learning something or sharing something.
Alhamdulillah. And we do share the odd picture of our cakes or burgers or
during fasting hours as well. Thanks a lot.
During fasting hours. So we do a bit of that as well. Subhanallah. So Jordan, question for you is that did any organizations or particular brothers or sisters help you with your journey into Islam and then post-Islam?
Yeah, so I guess
in the group, all of you guys.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Sister Adel. I'm going to ask a question to Jordan now, inshallah.
How do you do this? How do you say that? Or what,
Alhamdulillah.
The willingness to teach each other. That's what what's really refreshing. Because I know that in other religions, they kind of look at you like, oh, well, if you don't know, then maybe you shouldn't be here,
Yeah.
But with the brothers and sisters, they feel like a duty to teach you, because they know that it's good for you and it's good for them to spread the knowledge of how to practice.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallahu khair, Sister Adel. That was mashallah really inspirational. So Jordan, as I say, the same question to you in terms of organization or whether it was individuals that helped you?
Yeah, so I did a lot of stuff in isolation, to be honest. And so I used to speak to my niece. I mean, I would say, looking back, my niece gave me dawah. You know, she used to say to me, Uncle Jordan, I don't want you to go to the hell, or Uncle Jordan, Allah doesn't have a son, she'd say over Christmas time. And we'd have these conversations, and so I would then go away and start looking into it, and I was looking into bits of the Quran. I was looking online, trying to get, even then I sort of was aware there was bad sources out there. But I guess my journey of interacting with other Muslims started when I actually Facebooked Hamza. I saw him as someone who, you know, interested me because, you know, like I say, similar backgrounds and stuff. So, and fortunately, he responded to all of my messages. And when I look back at them, some of them were silly messages. I remember one of them was, why are we getting 72 virgins? I don't understand, you know. I look back thinking, what was going through my mind at this time? But I think I was looking at Islam as misogynistic, and all my questions were trying to sort of prime Hamza into that. But everything I had was sort of, you know, blown out of the water. And I saw Islam. I almost started to see Islam as biased towards a woman. And mashallah, you know, reverts are 70% of are women, is my understanding. But in terms of, I think I kept myself very isolated from people, and I tend to do that anyway. But obviously, I came to Speaker's Corner, and you know, I was always thankful because I saw John Fontaine was the first guy I saw. You know, mashallah, very lucky to meet him. And then I got to see you guys, and then that formed a relationship very early, where you guys right from the get-go were very supportive.
Initially, you came, Jordan, just to have a look. You wasn't going to talk to anybody. Is that right?
So I thought
you were just going to come and
check out a few debates, lurk around in the background, and then run off. But it did quite well. Like, as soon as the brothers there knew I was interested in Islam, I had cameras, I had other people coming around, and all of a sudden there was this circle around me. I was like, oh, there's no escaping this.
and then we whisked you off to dinner afterwards.
Yeah, it was actually, I think it was EFDawah was the first that they got me, and then obviously they knew I wanted to meet Hamza. So Hamza's always busy, and I got to meet you guys at the end of the day. I think it was when the sun was setting, if you look at the videos. And and then like I say, that form day. But yeah, to be honest, that was it in terms of I didn't really associate myself with any masjid. I went to Jummah to Imam Foundation with Anis, Hamza, and my journey just went. And I guess I built friendships, lifelong friendships in those time as well. So
alhamdulillah. Ben, same question for you, my friend. Ben, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, Ben, can you hear me?
Sorry, it's a bit laggy.
Okay.
He's in the comments.
I was looking at the comments.
Did you find any particular individual or group, or because you said initially you didn't have a lot of support, and perhaps that was a reason for perhaps withering a little bit. But what sort of support did you get, and from where, that you found sort of helpful?
So when I wanted to take my Shahada, there was a guy doing dawah. He was quite an old man doing dawah in city centre. Although I already made my decision, I went up to him and he offered to take my Shahada. We went to his house, and he converted his conservatory into a place to teach and to help new Muslims. So alhamdulillah, I had that. But the thing is, what was good is he taught me how to pray. He answered some questions that the best he could, and taught me how to recite Quran. So we'd go every week. So when I took my Shahada, he goes, right, we meet up every, I think it was Thursday at a time, this time, and we basically learnt Quran. So I learnt Al-Fatiha, then Ikhlas, and so on. But I didn't really do any. That's it, really. And he put me in contact with another Revert brother. So I was really grateful for that. If I didn't have that, I'd probably slipped away a lot quicker. But I just didn't click with anyone. And when I was a little, I struggled a bit. I had a lot of questions when I first started. And like I said, I didn't want to become a Muslim, so I was probably pretty awkward to deal with. Do you know what I mean? So I was asking quite questions, but they didn't really have any answers, and I drifted away. And I actually, after about like the second year, I actually went to a Quran only route, and I started meeting up people who only believed in the Quran and not the Hadith. And there was a group of them, and they all acted with my culture. So I felt really at home there. This is another story completely. Maybe we'll talk about it in the future.
Inshallah.
But when I come back to the deen, I tackled it head on with the hadith, and obviously now I accept a hadith as something to follow. But yeah, but the biggest support I ever had thank you for you guys, EFDawah, have been awesome. Having that Facebook group has been is really a good idea, and I kind of wanted to mimic that to the local area as well, because it's really helpful, man. Any question, no judging, you can ask anything, and we'll even have a little debate if you think you like, it's brilliant. It's really good.
Alhamdulillah, one of my dreams, Ben, was when we first started, mashallah, I met Hamza, and I know Hamza was very, mashallah, active in the dawah already. I had been active, but I wouldn't say very active, and when we first bought our little camcorder and we went to Speaker's Corner, because we were doing a little bit of work with some churches, we'd go there for dinner and we'd have a discussion about original sin, or about one of the concepts within the Bible or the Quran or whatever. But then when we started to go to Speaker's Corner, we bought this little camcorder, no tripod, we just held it in our hands, and I had a dream, and my dream was that I want lots of people to, inshallah, accept Islam, and I want us to have a massive group of people where we inspire each other and learn from one another, like a family, like a proper ummah. And so for me, when I hear these, mashallah, these comments, rather than becoming astaghfirullah, arrogant or whatever, it just makes me so incredibly emotionally happy that we, in some small way, Allah inspired us and gave us the ability and made us do this work that, alhamdulillah, has helped our brothers and our sisters around. So it does give us a lot of mashallah inspiration on that as well. So I suppose, Martin, the same question for you, really. Were there any people that were instrumental, perhaps, prior to accepting Islam or post accepting Islam, that helped you in your journey?
So my prior to accepting Islam was I was working very closely with a sister in the building society I was in at the time. So we were sat next to each other. Excuse me, sorry. I was asking her questions constantly, like, what about this? What about that? What about this? And then she said, look, read a book. That's the best advice I can give you, because I'll teach you my culture, blended with Islam, whereas a book will teach you proper Islam. So she was definitely the catalyst for me reading and researching more, rather than just asking questions.
Can I ask what book that was? Sorry.
It was a cheap ass 50p one from Islamic Relief or something. It was
okay.
It was awful to start with, but then I bought other ones afterwards because that initially sparked my interest, and then after that I started thinking, right, I need a better book, because it was from like 1979 or something like that. It was quite old and quite anti-Western. So sparked my interest. I'll find the books and then inshallah post them later, inshallah. But
and then sort of post accepting Islam, did you were there other organizations in Cardiff? How soon did you come to EFDawah? I can't actually remember now.
No, so I was still researching when I moved jobs. Sorry, I'll carry on with a quick story. And I found a group of brothers that I was working with. We had a little prayer room, and I was fasting for Ramadan. I hadn't become a Muslim at this point. And then I met a sheikh during Ramadan over one of the boys' houses and took my Shahada. I wasn't planning on it. And then that sheikh, for 2 weeks, taught me the basics. Like Ben said, you learn Al-Fatiha and how to pray and stuff. But then he went back to Singapore. And I was on my own for a year then, which was horrific, if I'm honest. It was hard work. Like, the boys that I'd worked with were still there, but I suppose most born Muslims don't realize that the help that we need. They see the Shahada and they're like, alhamdulillah, we got one. And they don't realize that 20, 30 years to learn their religion, and we've met a couple of months for years. So I was on my own for about a year, and then I met a brother called Tanvir in one of the mosques near where I was working, and he introduced me to Aira, and they were doing a new Muslim retreat.
MashaAllah.
And I begrudgingly went along because I was thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I didn't know much about my religion at that point, and it was 2 weekends back then. It was, so you do one weekend 1 month, 1 weekend the next month. So I thought I'll sign up for the first one, and I won't go to the second. Well, I wasn't going to go to the first one. I won't go to the second one.
Yeah.
And within the first day of getting there, I signed up for the second one because it was so beneficial, so informative. So that Aira retreat was the real spark that pushed me on my journey. And during that retreat, I met Isa. So this was about 2.5 years ago now.
MashaAllah.
And Isa introduced me to you guys in the group, which I had known about EFDawah anyway.
Okay.
Because I'd watched your videos and on YouTube. And then he said, I can get you in the group if you want. So I came into the group and I learned so much more. And without trying to big you guys up too much, it's inspired me to go on and do the Dawah training.
We want to recreate what the help we got. You want to recreate that because it's so helpful.
So now I'm involved with the local mosques in Cardiff, helping out new Muslims. So I'm one of the volunteers at the mosque to do the halakas that we have weekly, and I do outreach programs. So you guys have really kicked me on my journey. So if it wasn't for that Aira new Muslim retreat, I think I'd I don't know where I'd be now, to be honest.
Alhamdulillah. And the surprising thing is, Martin, that's from the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that whenever a companion accepted Islam, he would always partner them up with somebody that was similar of nature, that could teach them the religion. So he always gave support to people. Now, just imagine, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is right there. Everybody's, Muslim around you, but yet he would still partner them up with somebody who would support them, help them. And so I think
it's essential,
so from that perspective that you're all sharing, I think, subhanAllah, that's one of the things that EFDawah that we really wanted to do, was not just do videos, but to also, give support to our brothers and sisters, because, and to be really honest, the funny thing is that supporting you guys has actually supported us as well, because we've had to learn so much, because sometimes you'd come to us with a question and we wouldn't know it. So we would have to literally go back and start learning ourselves, subhanAllah. So it's been actually a really good inspiration and a really good way of learning off each other, even though, mashallah, Sister Adel, I admire some of the posts that Sister Adel will send out, and it'll sort of make me start thinking about my own Islam and my own position in Islam, and what am I doing enough, and really should I be sort of having more introspection. So subhanAllah, it's wonderful. So I think, Matt, you're the last one with the question now, in terms of how, what sort of what support and help you received and how it helped you, basically.
I think pre-Shahada, I think the EFDawah channel on YouTube definitely dispelled some of the common misconceptions people would have. So if it wasn't for that type of video and content, I may still have some of those preconceptions, about the religion itself and the deen matters. Post Shahada and day-to-day life, my friends, it's the people it's the people you hang around with are the ones that are going to influence you. So having good friends who are on deen is probably, I would suggest, the greatest piece of advice I can give anyone who wants to, is to surround yourself with good people. And spiritually, I have to say thank you again to EFDawah and the sponsors for the Umrah trip, because that's an experience I'll never ever forget. It's where I had my spiritual connection, praying in Roda with Jordan and then the other brothers. I still get emotional thinking about it now, because I never had that spiritual moment before I took my Shahada. It was more of an intellectual process, and the spiritual connection I actually got when I was in Medina, and that's thanks to EFDawah. That's thanks to the people who sponsored. That's thanks to everyone. So I wouldn't, I wouldn't be. It would be so much harder now without them.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So, Sister Adel, how can born Muslims, help and encourage more people to perhaps discover this beautiful religion of Islam? What can we do? What can we learn from you in terms of what we should be doing?
Well, okay. Since I was about maybe 10, I had a loose Jewish upbringing, and that sparked my interest, and I always wanted to maybe convert to Judaism. I was never, Christian, but I always wanted to belong to, get a religion where I felt at home. And part of what discouraged me from that route was I just felt like your curiosity, they kind of would close the door. But with all the Muslims that I've spoken to and my friends at home, and now in this journey of, exploration, they've always been willing to help. And not from a standpoint of, I know more than you, so I'm superior. No, always with just, you can tell it's a genuine desire to help the other person get closer to the understanding. And that was something so refreshing that, in any aspect of life, so many people, they use what they know to their advantage, and maybe they look down on you because you don't know as much. But in Islam, I felt it's totally different.
Alhamdulillah. So same question for you, Jordan. How can we born Muslims do more? Because one of the things that I try to emphasize really is that as Muslims, we are ambassadors to this religion, and that if we don't follow Islam properly and that we behave badly, then people are going to get people are going to get the impression that is what Islam actually is. But what would you advise us actually to try to make the clarity, the trueness of Islam really enter the hearts of people around?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And look, 99.9% of the stories I've heard, mashallah, Adel has a sort of a different story where she's almost on her own. So may Allah reward her for that journey, amazing journey. But most people I speak to have got that Muslim in their lives who just, their behavior is good, they're practicing, they're just all they always describe them as good people, and they almost want to be what they're on. And so I think this highlights. Sorry?
They lead by example.
Yeah,
like they live.
Exactly right. They that's exactly how you put it. They lead. They are an example of a Muslim, and people look at them and think, wow. And so they're that inspirational person that you see in most Shahada stories. So this really highlights how our behavior at all times, bad behavior may impact people moving away from Islam, and therefore it comes into question: are you then accountable for doing for bad behavior towards others? I've obviously now you see certain Muslims, misusing the word kafar, and we mustn't associate with them. I often wonder how I would have come into the religion if I'd met those kind of people.
Yeah.
But I'd say, yeah, in general, it's our actions, our behavior, any act of kindness, showing character is the best type of dawah out there, I would say. And I think we all respect that person who is loyal, family person, has character, trustworthy. We all respect that individual, despite being in society that's telling us to be James Bond. We all deep down respect that person, and the better examples we can be, the more it won't only bring people to Islam, but it will also give people a better perception of Islam and Muslims, which is in need at the moment.
Yeah. So Ben, I suppose the same question for you really is, what born Muslims, what can we do, inshallah, to make this religion more clear and inshallah hopefully encourage more brothers and sisters to actually come into Islam?
So to help, I would say there's 2 points really. I would say is to help new Muslims. I think the biggest thing is empathy, and understand that probably going through a lot of emotional I don't want to say problems, but emotional things in their life, because they're having to switch their life upside down. So a lot of forgiveness, understanding, make the effort to understand where they come from, where they're from, as in what they used to believe, what their family are like, and so on. So you can have some empathy with them on their journey and support them, because we are proper like newborn babies. We need a lot of support. So it's not just about the Shahada. And the second point, what did you say that what Muslims do to help?
What can we do? Like, so for example, I mean, what example should we be setting? How can we make this religion clearer to people, who have these misconceptions, for example, to hopefully try to make them more attracted to the religion?
So I'd say there's 2 points for that. There would be try hardest to follow the deen and be an example, lead by example with that. And the second one is you need to educate yourself on why Islam is true. Why? Because if you're a born Muslim, you've been given the gift of being born into this wonderful religion. But you don't just rest on your laurels. Find out why it is the real religion. You know what I mean? And then you'll be able to defend it. As simple as that. All these little slurs you get here and there, they're easily refuted once you learn about your religion. So I encourage people to learn their deen and try as hard as you can to live by it.
Same question for you, Martin.
Sorry, I was away for a while.
Are we boring you here, Martin? Sorry.
I was looking for my books. Look, I found the books.
You don't find our stories inspirational enough.
I found my book that I was reading. Where's my camera?
Just joking with you.
That one.
Okay.
It was Islam, A New Historical Introduction by Caroline Hildebrand.
Right, mashallah. So what can we do, Martin, as born Muslims, to hopefully clarify the religion and inshallah attract more brothers and sisters to the truth, to the deen?
I suppose, well, I don't know if we could attract people, because I'll let you guide who he wills, but I've been into schools to talk to Muslims into Muslim schools to talk about my journey and what attracted me to Islam. And it is the characteristics of a good Muslim was the major thing that attracted me in the first place. That's what sparked my interest, I guess. But teach the religion in English, I suppose, is the best way. If you're in an English-speaking land, obviously. Don't use words like Subhanallah and even though because I do these presentations for children in schools within the mosque that we're in, and we always use the word God. Like we know that when we're talking about God, we mean Allah, because it's the same person. Yeah. But for somebody you're talking to who may not be Muslim and you use the word Allah, they might think that that's a different God, and they'll instantly switch off, and they're like, I don't care. This is something else. Because we're coming from, like, I used to go to, same as Matt, I used to go to Sunday school. I used to be that religious family as well. So if somebody says to me Allah, I'm thinking that's somebody different. That's not who I know. So if you're trying to make it more accessible for basically most of our panel here, use words that they'll understand, break the religion down into easy things. So because when we're presenting to non-Muslim kids as well,
mashallah,
we oh, am I still here?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I just suddenly popped on my screen, sorry. Like I say, we use the simple text. So that's one way to make it easy to access or what's the word I'm looking for? Make it
accessible or relate, to be able to relate.
Relatable. So not feeling like a foreign religion.
Yeah, you could sort of say Allah, God. You could say God, Allah, who we call Allah, and make it more accessible rather than assume the person already knows all the terms that you're using. So I do appreciate that. So Matt, again, what advice can you give us old fuddy daddies to hopefully do a better job, inshallah?
I mean, are we talking to the Dawah team here, or are we talking just Muslims in general?
I would say to both, really. I mean, is there things that are lacking on our side? Because we would like to know, obviously, from a Dawah team as well, you know.
No, I think the Dawah team do an exceptional job, and in the sense that in the work they do. I think from us as Muslims, I think the main thing we can do, because the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, came to perfect good character, and that's to try and show good character to everyone. Because I'm not saying I'm an inspirational individual. I don't think I can inspire people, because God inspires people to. Allah inspires people to join the Deen, but I think my potential to damage people's perception of Islam is a lot higher than my potential to get someone to join it. So I think. I think we just need to be conscious of that, because again, I'm a human being. I make mistakes, so it's just to try and be God conscious in your actions all times, and how that could be perceived by someone else who may be thinking, about Islam, and obviously, if I go out and give bad advice or I act in a certain way, that could adversely impact on that person's journey. So that's probably the best advice I can give, is to just try and show good character all the time, and try and be God conscious. When you're dealing with non-Muslims and in everything you do.
Alhamdulillah. And that's very interesting, Matt, because even the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that I fear the day when my ummah will become a fitna for the people. In other words, the Muslims will become a reason to turn people away from Islam, because of their bad actions, because of their lack of following, because they're, following other than Islam, basically. And so I think all of you really touched on that, which is that we as Muslims have a huge responsibility, whether we're born Muslim or we come into the religion, recently, which is that we are ambassadors of this religion, whether we like it or we don't. And if we become a fitna, trial for the people because of our bad actions, because of our harshness or our lack of manners or lack of decorum, lack of honesty or decency, and people are turned away from Islam as a consequence, then we will be held responsible. So, mashallah, it's very good guidance, very good, very good information there. What I would ask, starting with Ben, is that, Ben, people who are considering to become Muslims, but they're struggling because they realize that, there's going to be a lot of changes. It's not going to be easy. What would you advise that person, Ben?
Do you know what? It's quite funny you say that, because I was going through my Facebook messages, and that is the exact problem I had for practicing again. And that's why I reached out to EFDawah, is that realization. I've had it twice now, realization that this is the truth and I need to follow it, but I don't want to. I think it's that. I think reach out for help and advice. Ask people that have been in your similar boat, and if you haven't got that, reach out online. Maybe there's lots of online help you can get, as well as the EFDawah for one, for example. You could shoot us a message on Facebook or whatever. It is hard, because it's that idea of that I need to be a Muslim, but I don't want to give up this and that. Well, one thing is, you don't have to straight away. You don't have to become like you don't go and you grow a beard and you got a kufi on, or you know what I mean. You can just be yourself, and you can bit by bit. It's all about just recognizing that there's a God and that He's connected with us, and you're just going to connect back with Him through salah, through the prayer, and that itself will build up the iman to want to give up. You end up wanting to give up these things eventually, but you don't have to give them up straight away. The companions, the prophet, the religion was given over 23 years.
Right.
They didn't. The Prophet, peace upon him, he fasted 9 Ramadans. It wasn't given to the companions overnight. So no one expects you to do it overnight. So just I would say, just take the Shahada. If you believe in your heart that this is true, just say it out loud. Say, I believe only one God, and that Muhammad, peace upon him, is the messenger of God. And then start your journey, mate, because it's wicked. The end point's wicked. It's a bit of a bump and ride here, but the end goal, alhamdulillah, it's a beautiful way of life. It's a beautiful.
And the thing is that even as a born Muslim, you are going to slip, and you're going to do things wrong. You're going to say things wrong, and potentially going to perhaps miss your prayer or whatever, you just turn to Allah, you ask for Allah's forgiveness with sincerity, and you just strive to do better.
Yeah.
And that's all Allah wants. Allah wants you to just keep striving, working and trying. Allah does not expect perfection. If Allah wished perfection, Allah would not have created us with imperfection.
Exactly.
So
it reminds me of a verse in the Quran. I forgot it off by heart, but there's a verse in the Quran saying, it doesn't matter how big your sin is, all you who have transgressed themselves by sinning, you can turn back to Allah. I'll get it, so I'll bring it up in a minute, inshallah.
So I suppose, Jordan, same question for you, really. Which, what would you advise that brother or sister who's maybe contemplating becoming Muslim, but they're really struggling because of what people might say or how their lives might suddenly transform?
Yeah, I'll never forget a quote from Sister Adel, actually, about I think you said, Sister, that you don't feel worthy of Islam. So that was kind of almost delaying your Shahada. Yeah, a very inspirational quote, I think, that I often, and it's so true for many of us that we almost see the Shahada as, unless we're the perfect Muslim post Shahada, we better not do it, and we better not let people down and let our Creator down. Whereas when you delay the Shahada, maybe you've got a bit more time to sort yourself out. Clearly, it doesn't work that way. Sorry, go on, Adel.
I said, or make excuses. You put it off, and keep doing what you're doing.
That's right. And
compromise that.
I think Shaitan would definitely play tricks on people who wanted to convert to Islam. And I remember in my head thinking having all of these worries. What people around me thought of me. It was a really big deal for me. Even after my Shahada, I still had all these issues. It was only really in Rhoda in Medina that I really a weight was lifted. But even for a year into being a Muslim, I was still very fragile. And that's further, a message to born Muslims that reverts in their first year are often, they may appear strong in their deen, but they can often be still quite fragile. They haven't built their foundations yet. So yeah, but look, when we're talking about a Shahada, we're talking about the keys to paradise. So we're talking about something a lot bigger than most, if you put it into perspective. And that's not always easy for a revert to kind of digest. But to me, once you take your Shahada, and there's no real emergency for you to come out. You don't have to go up and down the street singing "I'm a Muslim," and you can do things in your own time. I think the main thing is take your Shahada and then get onto the second pillar, which is your prayer. Then all of a sudden you have a connection to Allah, and then you work from there. And really, there's nothing that you can't achieve once you've taken that step, to be honest. And everything else becomes very insignificant. Whereas pre-Shahada, all these big issues seem like, they're really going to, for me, my job, my car, my house meant so much to me. Now I know that I could lose all of that. And it wouldn't, I would still be fine.
Alhamdulillah. So I suppose same question really for you, Martin.
Sorry, I was chuckling at Hamza's comment.
Okay.
Yeah, apart from Matt. Go on.
Yeah.
So what did I want to say? Yeah, it's good. I want to talk about some of the brothers that I mentor for new Muslims.
So basically, what I'm saying is that what advice would you give to people who are considering to come into Islam, but they're reluctant to, because obviously it's a big change, and it potentially could be, they might see it as quite sort of like, quite an upheaval in their lives, let's say. What would you advise that person, basically?
That's what I said. That's what I was sort of saying. And with guiding new Muslims and people who are looking into the religion, it's so I've spoken to many potential brothers who haven't taken that step yet. And when you actually speak to them, and they deep down believe, the same as me, I deep down believed that Islam was the truth, but it's what is society going to think of me? I've got to give up, I've got to stop going to play poker in the casino. I've got to give up my alcohol. I've got to give up this. I've got to give up that. And people think that they've got to be this perfect person before they become a Muslim. And it's the complete opposite. All you've got to do is have that belief in your heart, and whatever's inside, you just got to let it out of your mouth. Let those words come out, And after that, then slowly start to change yourself. It's baby steps. Like Mo Farah didn't become the best, if he is still the best marathon runner in the world overnight. Sure. He trained up to that. He got there eventually. So so that's not necessarily the analogy I use, I guess, but you've got to build up to being able to run a marathon. You can't be that superstar straight away.
Yeah.
So it's, like I say, it's that initial, if you believe it in your heart, let what's in your heart come out of your mouth, and then try and better yourself there. And once you keep learning the religion, you'll want to change. Like I wanted to change the more I learned. Like I can see there's a brother called Jake T in the comments, and he's saying he's learned so much, he's knowledgeable, he feels like it's correct, but he hasn't taken his Shahada yet. He's probably going through the same problems I went through, where you think you've got to be a perfect Muslim, but none of us are perfect. I guarantee all 6 of us here well, I know we all sin. We don't outwardly admit to it, but we all sin. And I think it was the Prophet, peace be upon him, said the best of my ummah is the sinner that repents, or something along those lines. Abbas, you can probably
after they've sinned. Yes.
Yeah. So I just advise whoever it is just to take that step and then very slowly change your life.
One thing that really
very interesting lecture by Khalid Yasin, and his analogy was that you can't build a house in a day, and build the things that are most important first, which is the foundation, which is your iman, and then you build the walls, which is your salah, your prayer. And and you build things. You don't worry about the roof, don't worry about the tiles, worry about the foundation first. And I think that's, mashallah, a very important message, and similar to what you're all saying, which is that once you're convinced, accept it, and then start your journey, and don't worry about the journey, and know that Allah will make that journey easy for you, inshallah. And even though you will have difficulties, understand that Allah says in the Quran, do they say they will believe and that we will not test them? In other words, just believing and just accepting doesn't mean that the tests will cease to exist, right? And so you can have those tests either outside belief, or you can have those tests within believing. And I think for a rational person, if you accept that there is a creator, there's only one rational choice, which is to accept it because it's true, and be in those trials and those tests that you will encounter, but be with your foundation there of iman and of belief first. Don't risk that. Don't have the death. Don't have death reach you in a state where you knew it was true, but you failed to accept it. Don't let death reach you in that way, basically. So I think, mashallah, it's a very, very important point there. So, Sister Adel, what would you advise the people who are looking into Islam but are really struggling to take that last step and accept it?
I don't know if she can hear us.
Sister Adel, can you hear us?
Oh, no.
Okay, well, I'll ask the question to Matt, inshallah, and then we'll go to Sister Adel once she gets better connection.
Hi. I think a lot of the brothers have made good points so far, which I'm not going to repeat. I think, though, some of the advice I give, and it's anything in life, never mind just accepting Islam. I think if anything is preventing you, if giving up something is preventing you from doing something which is good for you, you need to assess what that is and why it's got that kind of hold on you. So, I mean, for example, when I was much younger, I may not have gone out with a girl I liked because I thought my friends might not agree with it. You know what I mean? As soon as you start preventing yourself from doing things which are good for you, and it's because you don't want to give it up, you need to really assess what kind of grip that's got on you. And that's all I'm going to say, because these are things, if you can't accept something which you believe to be true and you know to be good because you want to go out and drink, or you want to go to the pub, or you want to go place a bet on something, then you really do need to assess what kind of importance you place on having a pint and going for a drink.
So I'm laughing because Brother Jordan is cracking a joke, which I found hilarious. And he's saying, being a ginger would have prevented you from having a girlfriend anyway.
That's awesome.
Where did you put that?
You're on a dance stream and you're still chucking.
Look, Jordan can fire shots all day he wants. We all know the balance of things here. He's fire shots typically privately all day. And you wonder why I don't come on here.
Subhanallah. So, Sister Adel, what would you advise? What would you advise somebody who's struggling to accept the truth? Can you hear us, Sister Adel? Okay, I think we've possibly got bad connection there.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to Sister Adel, inshallah, if she can hear us. The last question, because I think we've been going for an hour and 30 minutes, and I think Brother Martin or Matt reminded me that Asr is actually just upon us, so we need to pray. So starting with you, Ben, how would you say Islam has changed you as a person?
Whoa. That's a deep question. I suppose I'm a lot more disciplined. I even now, to be honest, I've got a personality of just quenching my desires, and Islam helps you put that into a controlled manner. I've got a lot more empathy now, I feel, towards people. I've got a lot of content in my life as well. So one thing I don't talk about much, especially when doing dawah or talking to potential Muslims or non-Muslims, is my subjective feelings with what Islam's done, because you can't really prove that. That's why I love EFDawah, and that's why probably so many people are logged in today, because they show Islam logically. This is a subjective thing now, but my life's changed for so much better. I've got a beautiful wife, alhamdulillah. Allah's given me loads of things. I remember one thing Darren said to me. He said, "Whatever you give up for Allah, He'll replace it with something better." And that was the thing of when those times where I had to give up big things in my life for the sake of Allah. That's when my iman went straight up, because Allah did that. It was amazing. I've got some amazing stories of that. Seems so like to someone that doesn't believe in God, for example, I think it's a massive fluke. You jammy git, they'd say. But things that have happened to me that have been awesome, and I've got, because of that high iman, I've got a massive content in my life and a certainty, which is really cool. So yeah, alhamdulillah, it's really good. Alhamdulillah. I don't know what else to say.
Alhamdulillah. Jordan, same question for you. How has Islam changed your life?
Yeah, I think like I always say, before I was content. Before when I say content, I think deep down we always yearn for, we always have those moments. What is our purpose? And we ask the big questions, sort of, when we go through tough times, and I always did that anyway. But I was fairly content as I was. But becoming Muslim definitely, as I say, put things into perspective for me. You essentially are, guidance is a massive thing. I think I always had an arrogance before that I could guide myself, and I think most people in this country that I meet have that same opinion, that they're smart enough to guide themselves. I think it's hard to describe the feeling of becoming Muslim. Obviously, essentially, you've submitted yourself to Allah, and to some people, a lot of people ask me, Jordan, how have you given up all your freedom from before? You can go out clubbing, you can do this, you can do that. Why would you give all that up? And I feel like it's the other way around. I feel like I've actually escaped from all of that, and now I'm actually on the true path.
Yeah,
so
big time.
It's I certainly haven't given up my freedom. I feel like now I'm free. Now I'm free from all of that stuff, and I have a straight path, and I know exactly in life what I'm doing now. And so it's a beautiful feeling.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Martin, same question for you then, inshallah. How has Islam changed your life?
Alhamdulillah, I've been blessed with so many amazing friends now compared to what I used to think were friends. So that has changed massively, I guess. But my children see the change in me as a person. They can see I'm a calmer person, a happier person. So for my children to turn around and say, we can see it's improved you. Like my children aren't Muslim at the moment. Inshallah, they will at some point. But for them to turn around and say, Dad, we can see you're a better person, that's more than anything, I guess. Like, and then, I'm more patient. I got more time for people. Like I've realized the importance of family, mothers, my mum, for example. So it's just made me a better person, more grounded person. I used to chase the things in this world, like the watches, the nice cars. I wanted to keeping up with the Joneses, I guess. And now I'm not focused on that. Now I'm more focused on what I can do to help other people, I guess. And like I say, I try and do a lot of stuff with the new Muslims. I try and do stuff with schools. Like I'm trying to be a better person, I guess, and give back rather than take all the time. So
alhamdulillah.
I think that's the biggest change, I guess.
Alhamdulillah. So Matt, how has Islam changed you as a person?
As much as Jordan is going to take the mickey out of this, you know what I mean? Because let's face it, he has nothing better to do. I think I'm going to mirror his comments. It's freedom. Whilst people think like it's limiting, it's freedom. It's freedom through limitation. You're limiting yourself to what's good for you. So, mashallah, I don't smoke anymore. I'm happier. I've got a mechanism to deal with stress. It's a great equalizer. It's a healthy way of life. Yeah. I try to be a better son, a better brother, a better friend. I try to, and it's led to so many improvements in my life that and it's not like really like big significant things. It's just small improvements here and there which add up to a better quality of life. And I'm just so grateful that I've had that opportunity, and I was selected, invited to join Islam, and it's really humbling to be part of the religion, part of the deen. So it's made me more confident, and it's just helped me deal with life in general. There's always a solution to every kind of problem, and it's just the massive equalizer. Everyone's the same. Everyone's got the same problems. And there's a mechanism by which to deal with it.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Sister Adel, so we lost you for a bit. Can you hear us? Sister Adel, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can. It's internet. I'm sorry.
It's okay, mashallah. You've done pretty well.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So, Sister Adel, somebody who's contemplating coming into Islam, but they lack the confidence, or they lack the drive, or perhaps they're just nervous about taking that step. Can you advise that person? What should they do? Sister Adel, did you get the question? Sister Adel, can you hear the question?
Decía Mike que tiene la llave.
Okay.
Maggie. Dame la llave, por favor.
So we've got a bad connection there. Okay. One of the things that I wanted to thank all of you really is that, mashallah, this stream for me was a great inspiration as well, mashallah. And even being a born Muslim, and you go through times in your life when perhaps you're not practicing very much, and you don't feel that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that little things that stress you out, worry you, concern you, they just tend to fester. They tend to grow. They tend to eat you up, sort of thing, consume you almost, And then when, alhamdulillah, you're praying a little bit with more khushu, with more connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you feel like you're connected more to the deen, it really does become so much easier to realize that, I have to do my best as a Muslim, but success is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that I mustn't be stressed out about not getting to where I want to get to now. and know that there is a bigger picture. There's a bigger thing out there, and that our lives on this earth are just but. As the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, just when a traveler is on a long journey and he takes a very short rest under a tree to gain some shade, you know, our life is compared to that, just a very short blink of an eye, you know. And so your perspective on things changes. So the things that would stress you out, worry you, concern you, actually, it's okay, you know. Subhanallah, ya Allah, if that's what you have for me, I'll bear it patiently, inshallah. And, you know, I look forward to when Allah says in the Quran, with difficulty comes ease. Allah will always give you ease after difficulty. And that difficulty may be placed upon you because Allah wants you to grow closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and learn from it and become stronger as a consequence with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even out of something that we might perceive to be negative, we can look for a positive. We can look for something that gives us a real conviction. And I would totally agree with you that there's an incredible peace of mind and a peace of soul and a peace of heart, you know, where you feel contented, you feel happy, alhamdulillah, you know, and that you're not consumed by the dunya, by the world and its problems and its issues, you know. And let's face it, there's a lot of problems out there, a lot of issues out there, but alhamdulillah, it just gives you a completely different perspective. I would agree. Sister Adel, are you able to hear us now?
I can hear you. Yes,
that's okay. So I'll give you the last two questions, inshallah, so you can wrap the stream up and you can be the finale, inshallah, on the stream. What would you advise people who are contemplating accepting Islam, but they're not able to, you know, quite take that step?
I think a lot of it has to do with maybe the title of become a Muslim or the title of Islam. If you remove that and you think about what the true nature of it is, and a lot of it, I love the fact that it's referred to as being a revert, not a convert. So it's not like you're changing into something else. You're actually taking a step back to a more natural state. The revert is go back to where we came from. So without the title or anything, just think about what are, you know, you believe in one creator, Allah. If that's the most important thing. If you feel this in your heart, that's already the first step. So it's not like you have to change anything or become something else. You have to go back to what you already are. You have to look at it that way. And don't doubt it. Don't think you're gonna have to change your identity. It's actually moving more to your true identity, as Allah created us.
Alhamdulillah. And sister, how do you think Islam? I know, mashallah, you accepted Islam a few weeks ago, but how do you feel it's changed you as a person?
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks, but like you guys were saying, how people ask, oh, so you're gonna give up all your freedom, you get being able to go out or do this and that. That's not what defines us as a person. So letting these things go doesn't mean we're less of who we were. But hold on one second.
You're right.
MashaAllah.
That's okay. Sister, you're having to juggle a lot of things here at the same time.
Bless her.
Okay. So
I try to turn off the microphone so you guys don't hear if my baby's crying and
running around. We understand.
Could you hear it? I'm sorry.
We're sitting here by ourselves. We've got it easy. You're mashallah trying to juggle.
I just think it's
all sorts of things.
Oh, it's so much. Yeah. You don't know where to fall short or where to put all your energies. That's why that goes back to it. It's a very recent thing for me. But like you guys were saying, there's no rush because you don't have to do it perfectly right now to please anybody. If Allah sees your intention, once you make it back, it's like you're at home. So you can rest and just take it one step at a time. There's no pressure.
Alhamdulillah.
Really good
Jazakallahu khair for everybody who attended the stream. Ben, Jordan, Martin, Adele, Matt,
Thanks for hosting.
alhamdulillah, all incredibly inspirational for us who are born Muslims. And it really does. And when Sister Adel, when I hear and I see some of the comments you make, or Ben, or Jordan, Martin, Matt, and the other brothers and sisters, Isa, and some of the other brothers and sisters, they make it really makes me want to be a better Muslim. And it really wants me to, concentrate and reflect on where I'm falling short as well. So alhamdulillah, you're an amazing, mashallah, inspiration for all of us. I just want to thank all of the Patreons who are, mashallah, donating. And alhamdulillah, I hope that you can see that, inshallah ta'ala, it's a non-profitable organization with EFDawah. It all goes, inshallah, to the dawah for the translation of the videos and to support the dawah projects and the new Muslims, mashallah, whether it's on courses or books or whatever. So we're very, very grateful, mashallah, to all of you that are helping out. We're also very, very grateful to all the viewers for their comments. And mashallah, their positive comments are incredible. And before we do go, though, Martin, you mentioned there's a brother on the stream who's realized that Islam is true. And I know that some of you need to go away now, and I thank you for your time. But if the brother wants to come on and have a chat with me and Jordan, or with any of you who want to stay, we're very happy to have him on and have a discussion with him.
Jake T, that one was.
And if he wants to do the Shahada, we're here for him, inshallah. We can inshallah do that with him, inshallah.
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 And we got Hamza on Sunday, haven't we? Looking forward to that.
And that should be a nice one. And then on Tuesday, we've got a very important stream, inshallah, with a psychotherapist brother who is also a part-time imam, who's going to go through, aspects of, depression and mental issues, mental illnesses, and how the Islamic perspective, really, how to deal with these things, inshallah ta'ala. So I thank you all for all your wonderful contribution. And wish you all a pleasant Ramadan. And I think we have to do this again, because I think it was a really nice... it
was lovely format.
All on.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.